my name is Amanda Wolford, and for my lesson today, it is going to be a second grade science lesson on animals and their habitats. And the Idaho State Content Standards for Science are LS2A. Animals depend on their habitat to meet needs for food, safety, and survival. And LS4C, animals have traits that help them survive in their habitats. The learning objectives for this lesson are students will be able to make observations and construct an evidence-based account that animals have specific needs and can only survive in environments where their needs are met. Students will understand that different animals have unique traits that help them survive in their habitats and environments. And students will be able to argue with evidence that a trait that is beneficial in one habitat could be useless or even harmful in another. Science and engineering practices, students will ask questions and define problems. Students will plan and carry out experiments and investigations. Students will analyze and interpret data, and they will construct explanations and a diorama. The cross-cutting concepts, students will find cause and effect. They will look for patterns, style and function, systems, and system models. For assessments, I have formative, which is an oral check. Can a polar bear survive in the desert? And just questions like that. And then for exit ticket, students will name one animal and its habitat, along with one adaptation that the animal has that helps it survive in its habitat. So those are the formative. And then for the summative, I have a project. Students will complete a project where they will select an animal and construct a diorama of the animal and its habitat. Students will share their diorama with the class and explain their project to the class. And they'll share their animal, its habitat, and adaptations that the animal has that helps it survive in its environment. For technology, I have some video clips that I will share. There's one on a polar bear and a camel and a frog, and it just talks about how they survive in their habitats. And for safety, I will explain, because I'm going to do stations. I have 3 stations, and so before we do stations, I will explain to the children, proper etiquette at stations, and that will keep them safe. And I will also observe them while they're in their stations. For higher leverage practices for all learners, I will provide students with graphic organizers to help students organize their ideas and information. For gifted and talented learners, I will offer extension choices, such as researching an endangered animal as well, or they could compare different animal habitats. And then for English learners, bilingual emergent, I would provide picture-supported vocabulary and sentence frames, such as the animal lives in the blank habitat because blank. Students with other exceptionalities, I would provide simplified graphic organizers or ones that are partially filled in, along with I could allow verbal responses instead of written responses and provide hands-on support at the stations if they need help. For instructional strategies and learning tasks, I have different things. I think I want to share that part though with you. Yeah. For the engage part of the lesson, I will introduce the topic to the children. I would also go over prior knowledge and set the stage for inquiry, such as, hello class, welcome to the lesson today. We are going to learn something new about animals and their habitats. But before we get started, who can tell me what the basic fundamental needs are for animals? Right, they have to have food and water and shelter and safety. Great, and they also need a place to reproduce, right? Right, are animals humans? You're right, they are. Very good, and who can tell me what a habitat is? Very good, it's where an animal lives and survives and reproduces. Very good, that's a habitat. Okay, so now we are going to expand and learn more about habitats and animals and how they can survive in each habitat that they live in, and special adaptations that they have that helps them survive in their environment. So let's watch these 3 videos and then we'll come back and discuss them.
Warm in their cold environment because they are insulated by up to 4 inches or 10 centimeters of fat. and have 2 layers of fur, a dense undercoat, and an outer layer of longer guard hairs that help trap their body heat.
And strong teeth that help them chew these rough plants without getting hurt. These furry mammals also have unique stomachs that help them survive in the tough desert environment. Their stomachs have 3 chambers, which allow them to break down the rough, dry plants more efficiently. Several days without water. They have special cells in their bodies that can store water in a way that allows them to survive in hot deserts where water is hard to find. Padded feet that help them walk on sand without sinking.
To breed and live that does not have too many predators. Frogs truly have hundreds of predators that will gladly eat them. We discussed small freshwater lakes and generally gravitate towards areas with an abundance of vegetation to hide from predators.
So after watching these videos, what did you notice about the animals that live there? Right, they have special adaptations that help them survive where they live. What does a polar bear have that helps it live in such cold environments? Right, they have layers of fat and thick fur that help them survive the cold. Very good. Could a polar bear live in the desert like a camel? No, you're right, it would die. A camel live in the Arctic. No, why? Right, it doesn't have warm fur or thick fat to keep it warm, so it would die too. How about a frog? Can a frog live in the desert without water? No, you're right. A frog has to have water to survive. So each of these animals have certain things to help them live in the environments and habitats that they live in. These are called adaptations. And so now students after that will move on to the next part, which is the explore part of the lesson. And for explore, I have 3 different stations I would set up: an Arctic station, a desert station, and a forest station. The Arctic would have fur samples like fake fur, or if I had real like rabbit fur I get from a craft store, I could get that. But different kinds of fur, and then ice packs that they could hold up to the fur, and then they could put their hand under the fur and like feel if they could feel the cold through the ice pack. And then the students would test how different fur layers feel when pressed against the cold packs. And then each station has investigative questions. This one has, how does fur help an animal survive in the cold? And that's the first station. And the second station is the desert habitat. And I would have sand, water, sponges, and then to represent the camel hump, I would do a water balloon under a cloth. And then I would also have like a heat lamp. And the students would compare how the water feels like up next to a heat lamp and stuff, in the water balloon and stuff. And then the investigative question would be, why would animals in the desert need to store water? And for the forest habitat, I would have leaves and twigs and different kind of like camouflage, and then some probably plastic frogs. And the students would just like see, hide the frogs in the twigs and leaves and notice that they are harder to find when they are camouflaged. And the investigative question is, how does camouflage help animals survive? And then, so that is the explore part. I would go around the classroom during this and to each station and then just ask questions. Afterwards, we will get back together again and discuss this findings. So I would ask questions. Okay, class, now that we have finished our stations, let's discuss some of our findings. And what did you find about the Arctic? What does an animal need to survive in cold environments? Right, thick fur or fat, right? Because that insulates them and keeps them warm. What does an animal need to survive in the desert? Great, a way to store water. Yeah, and the camels, they can eat the very thick, prickly vegetation there too, because they have their stomach is different, so it can process these plants, and they can store 40 gallons of water. So these are different adaptations that it has to survive in the desert. And what about the forest? What did the animals need to survive in the forest? What adaptation? Right, being able to camouflage. Very good. For the elaborate part of the lesson, we'll do a STEM challenge where students will select an animal and design a diorama of the animal and its habitat. This would not be able to all be done in one day. I would want to be able to have them work on it in class as well. So there'd be like the first part of the lesson, and then after that, end of that, I would do like the oral check and the exit ticket. And then after that, I would explain this project, and they could start on it, but they wouldn't be able to finish it that day. And I would have different materials available like leaves and twigs, paper mache, clay, and then, you know, pipe cleaners, twigs, whatever to make their dioramas. And then, so this would be not the same day, but once they complete their diorama, they would share it with the class and explain what animal they chose, what adaptations the animal has to survive in its habitat, what habitat do they live in. And so, yeah, that would be the summative. But like I said previously, before that, at the end of the lesson, I would have done a formative, like an oral check, and then an exit ticket. For the exit ticket, students would name one animal and its habitat, along with the adaptation the animal has to help it survive in the habitat. And that would just be a quick check where they would just write it on a paper and hand it in. The project would be the summative, where they get to make a diorama to present to the class. And then how this lesson meets standards and 3D requirements. This lesson engages students with hands-on stations. Students use cause and effect and structure function to reason for animal survival in their habitats. Students construct a diorama and explain how the animal can survive in their habitats. Students analyze animal traits and match them to their habitat conditions. Students practice social skills by sharing their diorama and findings with the teacher and the class. And this lesson has multiple representations and modes of learning to support scientific literacy and inquiry. Thank you very much.